there's a lot of different types of data that we can be collecting. Ecological that we were just talking about doesn't have to only be collected when we look at plants and animal populations. In fact, we can take place-based knowledge. We can gather that as we speak with people. So we can talk to people about what they know about a site. They may actually know the answers to our ecological questions simply by living in that place for a long time. So don't think of personal information only as kind of values and feelings. In fact, a lot of the information we can gather ecologically can be from human communities. It's also interesting, Katie's going to talk about this too, to look at demographics. Where do we see environmental issues kind of transecting with things like age or profession, our gender identities, our ethnicity, the geography of where we're from. We can gather existing or adapted measures. So I think this one's really important because when you go out to do a line transect in a plant area, even if you don't know what that is, you have a general idea that you're going to pull a big tape measure and you're going to be assessing different plants. This is a time-tested technique. Nobody would go out there and probably try something different. You would go straight to the literature to see what's been done before, and there's replicate after replicate of that same type of information. In many ways, we want to do that same thing with our own work, right? And when we do that, we support the work of others simply by doing, again, those techniques or adapting them slightly and then saying, if I take this little bit different approach, that can be a way that it might fit my place. So I wanted to share one of those here that I've used in some of my research. So I could go up and ask somebody, hey, is this place important to you? I could be standing at that signal tree speaking with somebody about what's important about this place, how connected are you to this place? And they could answer that in a qualitative way for me, right? We could just have a conversation. I could document that information if that was okay with them. Or I can ask it in a quantitative way. So you can see here, this chart is just simply 7 sets of circles, and each one of those circles overlaps a little bit more. And this was something that was written up in the 1990s, and I simply adapted it to be able to use it for place, since my research is focused on important places. So I could let people look at that visual, and they could point to one of those sets of circles and say, yes, that one best represents me, my connection to this particular important place. And then I can go in and I can take something that feels like a qualitative idea, but I can really bring it into a quantitative context. So I can simply label, if you look at where the 2 circles are that don't overlap, I could call that 1, the next one 2, the next one 3, and boom, before I know it, I have a big column of numbers that I can then compare to other columns and other ideas and information. So personal values is another one here, the idea that we have values, we have attitudes, we have behaviors that we each have as individuals. Lots of social science research looks at this, right? We're always curious about how people connect to nature and how they feel, what kind of environment, how can we get them to environmental action? Something that many of you, I think, are working on and dealing with. So at the bottom of the slide down here, I simply have, which values are most commonly associated with attachment to highly valued places. So I'm just taking a big set of personal values where I'm asking on that 1 to 9 scale. So I have a bunch of 6, 7, 5, etc., all in a column. And then I'm able to compare each of those columns to this place attachment, the score I was talking about earlier around natural connection. So I think what's neat here is we can do this in a lot of different ways, right? There's not only one statistic that's going to sort of point us in a particular direction. And if you think about a priori assumptions, that simply means that you had an assumption before you came into this whole scenario, and that's the question that you want to test. So I might say from this information that's here, hey, I think that as you feel peaceful, the more peaceful you feel in a place, the stronger place attachment you're going to feel. So maybe if I saw bigger numbers for peacefulness, I might also see larger responses for place attachment. That could be a question that I asked beforehand. For my work, I didn't actually really have anything in particular I wanted to see. I actually just wanted to really understand all of the personal values and how they connect to place attachment. And then what I could do is I could run correlation, regression, other inferential statistics that could tell me if those relationships were real or I just really wanted them to be there. Because a lot of times we just really want to think, hey, a special place must make people happy, right? So these are the types of things that statistics keep us honest to ensure that we really are using kind of the right information moving forward. And once I had those statistically significant values or combinations, relationships, I could go further with that information as I moved forward. So that's just a little bit for us to be thinking about.